Hello, this is Judith Regan, and you're listening to the Dominic Natty Show.
Why did this interview go unaired for 12 years?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I did the interview in 2006, and I was hoping that it would air 2 days after I did the interview. I did it on a Sunday. It was supposed to air that Tuesday. And at the time, there was a great deal of controversy that was kind of ginmed up in and around it, even though nobody had actually seen the interview. Nobody had read the book. And the people who were in the room when the interview occurred, the crew and the producers and so on, all had signed NDAs, so nobody talked about it. Nobody said anything, but it was kind of a dangerous moment if you consider what happened, which is that there was the roar of the crowd. Everyone was incredibly angry about something that they really didn't know anything about. So it's very easy to gin up a controversy, get everybody all riled up, and then everyone has a point of view, but nobody knows anything.
Right.
And that's what happened. A very bizarre moment. I'm sure someday it'll be a moment in a TV series.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I got a call a couple of weeks ago from Fox saying they were going to air it, and that's all I know. Yeah.
You had you just figured it was over with. 12 years went by, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, you got a call from Fox.
Yeah, I'd inquired a few times over the years. You know, this is an interview that you guys have, and it'd be great to show it because, as the New York Times said, it's an important piece of cultural history. The other thing that I think that interview demonstrated and did was its vindication for Christopher Darden, who is actually quite an amazing human being, and he was smeared, he was excoriated, he was criticized, he was, there was a lot of venom that was spewed about his role in it from both sides. He was called an Uncle Tom. A lot of really damaging, hurtful things happened to him. And if history sometimes, changes everybody's perspective, and when time passes and we learn a little bit more, we have a different view. And there have been, two major series. There was the documentary that won an Academy Award, and then the scripted series, and people have a different view, and even the jurors have talked about, in essence, kind of payback for the Rodney King verdict and some of the other things that would, happen behind the scenes and how difficult it was always going to be to get a conviction. And I think that O.J. Simpson talking about the night of the murders and the way in which he did throughout the interview, blaming Nicole for everything, saying Ron and Nicole killed him, the callousness, the egocentricity, the lack of regard he had for her. He goes on to say how angry he is at her. After he kills her, he's angry at her because it didn't resolve anything for him, and he's angry at her that he's not able to control her anymore. He basically kind of hangs himself on every word, and after watching that, I don't know how anyone could think anything other than this man brutally murdered two people, and it's a horrible tragedy.
Are you filing a lawsuit against O.J. and his attorneys and what would you sue them for exactly?
No, I don't know. The story's been, I think, blown up by his attorney who's been trying to get famous and get his, crazy point of view out there.
Okay. So that's not even happening. That's just fake news. So O.J. is claiming that you made the interview with him more dramatic so you could make more money off it. Did you make any money off it?
See, now this is the insanity of O.J. I work in the media business. I, create lots and lots of different media properties. It's what I do for a living. And his complete insane idea, just like he did with Nicole, blame her, she hit me, she did this to me. He doesn't want to take any responsibility for his actions. He doesn't want to take any responsibility for the fact that he wrote the book, he hired the ghostwriter taped the interviews, the ghostwriter was required by his own contract with the ghostwriter to give him the tapes back, which he did. O.J. approved every single word of the book. I had never met him until I walked into the room that day. I sat down in the room with him. I had the conversation with him. There were 20 people in the room. He's now claiming that I scripted this, that it was an infomercial. This is the meanderings of an insane psychopath. And he also claims that Ron and Nicole killed him and ruined his life. So I'm not even going to honor his insanity with any more of a response than that.
Gotcha. And it looks like, from my guesses, that you haven't made any money from this. It sounds like you probably lost a lot of money, right? I mean,
The book was withdrawn. There was a lot of money that was lost because the books had been printed. They were destroyed. I was an employee, and was paid as an employee at the time because the company that I had, the interest that I had in that company, had sold to HarperCollins. So I was an employee. I was fired, and the tapes remained at Fox because they had them, and I had nothing further to do with the book, and the book became an issue for the Goldmans. The Goldmans sued. They got the rights to it. They published the book. And whatever proceeds, the publisher and the Goldmans shared.
did O.J. receive any money for doing the interview with you?
No, we did not have a contract with O.J. Simpson for the book,
Okay.
and I know that he spun all kinds of tales, and there was never a contract with O.J. Simpson.
So why was the book blocked from distribution?
That wasn't my decision.
Okay.
I was an employee of a company. They decided to kill the book and the television project, and it wasn't my decision.
Did you believe at the time that O.J. was a murderer? And if you did, why would you agree to publish the book if I did it?
My personal feelings about the case aside, his representative called me and said he was interested in confessing, and I thought that was a fascinating idea that this man would actually sit down and confess. This was a story that had occupied the minds of millions of Americans. It was an important cultural moment, and it was probably the first kind of reality show, sadly, in America. The trial was televised. There were endless books, endless conversation, and I thought this was an opportunity to put a period at the end of the sentence. To publish means to make public. It's a version of what you're doing right now. And as a publisher, I publish many, many people I disagree with politically, many, many people whose stories I don't particularly like, but I believe in free speech. I believe that people have a right to tell their stories, and this particular one was an important cultural story that, crossed the issues of domestic violence and race and celebrity and so many other things, and I thought that this was an interesting project.
Yeah.
Should we not cover horrible people and horrible experiences? I mean, it's an absurd idea.
So in your opinion, do you believe that O.J. Simpson is prone to murder again?
Well, I'm not an expert. I've certainly interviewed other people. I've talked to other, more skilled people in this arena than I am, FBI profilers and so on and so forth. And, other people are of the opinion that he is a sociopath. Some have described him as a psychopath, remorseless. He's thuggish. These are all words that other people have used to describe him, and other people have said that he's capable of continuing his criminal.
Now, were you apprehensive when O.J. approached you about the book, and did he manipulate you into disregarding your concerns?
I was apprehensive about whether or not he would actually confess. Is he really going to confess? Is he going to tell the truth? Because this is a manipulative psychopath. And I think if you have ever worked in the arena of true crime and interviewed detectives and so on and so forth, I remember years ago interviewing a detective who had a long correspondence with Ted Bundy, who's one of, the more well-known serial killers, who killed I don't know how many women. And they had a long correspondence in which they spoke hypothetically about crimes. And people in law enforcement, by the way, have given me a lot of credit and, have said that the way I interviewed him and the way I talked to him is how they train people to actually interrogate and, create comfort with people so that they feel safe to talk about their crimes.
Yeah.
And I think in observing that interview and listening to that interview, and studying that interview, and, you know, many psychologists, psychiatrists, and law enforcement folks, and an NCIS interrogator contacted me and said, the way you handled it was so skilled, you know, that this is what we train people to do, to have a kind of still face, and to not judge, and to just let them talk and feel from your interaction with them comfortable so that they can speak freely. And I think he did, and I think he may have been manipulative, he may have tried to create facts that, you know, distorted the truth, I don't know, but there was enough in his language. I do remember the knife. I do remember this, you know. I do remember that. There's enough in his language to see that he's telling the truth. And he certainly, when he talks about, you know, visiting her grave and cursing at her, and the day of the wake, his inappropriate reaction, there's never any, my ex-wife, whom I loved more than anything, is gone. There's never any of that. It's all about him and feeling sorry for himself and trying to get sympathy and trying to charm people into liking him, and his image was destroyed, and she did this to me, and I'm the victim, and she was violent, not me. And even when he's describing the incident where he's hitting the tire of the car at first, he doesn't say he hit it. He had a bat, and he was obviously menacing and scaring her. And he's holding the bat, and he's hitting the rim of the tire, and he goes, it hit the rim. Because he's trying to diminish his role in everything. And then I kind of touched or hit the front of the car, kind of sort of smashed the windshield. He doesn't say that, but it's, again, in every case he's the victim, he's the one that's wronged, it's all the same thing over and over again.
So who owns the rights to the book If I Did It? Who owns the rights today?
I have no idea. The last I read, the Goldmans owned it. But after I was fired, they sued for the rights. This is all in the press, and that's all I know.
Okay. But he did use a ghostwriter. I mean,
everybody uses a ghostwriter. The ghostwriter, who has written many, many books, interviews the individual. The individual tells the stories. They're all on tape. The tapes are transcribed, and the book is written from their words and in their words, and it is his words. He approved everything. Nothing was fabricated by anyone. If it was fabricated by him. They're his words.
Now, it was reported that your publishing company paid O.J. for the rights of the book, If I Did It. Are these allegations true? Hello? Hello?